Hamburg, Germany. These computer operators are not IT professionals, they are ship's captains. This fleet center directs 180 cargoes all over the world. Their job is to ensure the safety of their fleet. Their weapons are computers capable of analyzing weather, tides, and sea currents in real time. Nowadays, all liners are monitored. Had this technology been available in 2012, it would doubtless have prevented one of the worst maritime disasters ever. Costa Concordia, a name that resonates with everyone. A floating paradise that became a living hell. A shipwreck with twice as many passengers as the Titanic. But behind the familiar images, few know the technical details of what happened on the night of January 13th, 2012.
Quelques minutes après l'impact, le navire n'a plus de propulsion et n'a plus de barre. Donc du coup, il est complètement incontrôlable.
To analyze what happened that night, we interviewed engineers, marine architects, and ship's captains, as well as those who experienced the disaster firsthand.
J'entends et je vois en même temps la coque du navire et j'ai l'impression qu'elle racle le sol, le fond marin.
Thanks to footage shot aboard the liner and information from the ship's black box, we relive every moment of the tragedy.
Tutto allagato, ma già abbiamo il quadro elettrico principale pieno d'acqua, comandante.
But in the wake of the disaster, we will go behind the scenes to look at the pioneering 2-year operation involving hundreds of naval engineers and architects to refloat the Costa Concordia.
Many people told, no, it's impossible.
22,000 individual dives were carried out. It's the biggest diving operation in history.
A gigantic project to limit the damage caused by one of the most staggering shipwrecks ever. A sinking that reduced the Costa Concordia to a heap of steel that was out of control. Marseille, January 8th, 2012.
En sortant du car, on se retrouve au pied de ce bateau, monstrueux.
This film, shot by passengers, shows the sea monster that was the Costa Concordia.
Immense. Vu d'en bas, vous savez, c'est comme les gratte-ciel. Quand on regarde en bas, on a l'impression qu'on va tomber en arrière, tellement c'est haut. Donc on était vraiment très impressionnés, tout excités. Ça faisait longtemps qu'on n'était pas partis en vacances avec Laura, mon épouse. Donc on était un peu comme des gamins, quoi.
The ship is at full capacity as it prepares to leave. The 4,000 passengers on board immediately fall under its spell. It is a wonderland, a floating city with 80,000 square meters dedicated to leisure activities and passenger relaxation.
Vous allez un coup au casino, un coup au restaurant, un coup à la salle de spectacle, un coup à une visite virtuelle du Concordia, un coup dans les salons de danse, un coup dans les salles de musique. Donc en fait, vous avez tout sur place, quoi. On a l'impression d'être tout de suite rentré dans une autre planète. Ça a un côté un peu casino. Il y a des lumières partout, il y a des dorures partout, donc c'est un peu kitsch, hein. Mais bon, on avait un peu acheté pour ça, quoi. C'est-à-dire pour une semaine où on pense plus à rien. La croisière s'amuse, c'était vraiment ça, hein, le but, hein, et on va se lâcher, ça va être super.
Everything needed to enjoy a carefree existence. The Costa Concordia is the Costa Fleet's flagship, the shipowner's pride and joy. At that time, it was the largest Italian liner ever built. The price, too, was off the scale, 500 million euros. Ship owners are happy to invest so much because since the 1970s, the cruise business has been enjoying a boom. No financial crisis in this sector. Thanks to the trend towards bigger ships and the growing popularity of vacations that combine travel, visits, and relaxation, cruises are now a mainstream tourist industry. In the Mediterranean, over 6 million cruise passengers travel on these giant liners. Every day, the Costa Concordia spews 3,000 passengers into tourist towns: Marseille, Barcelona, Mallorca, Cagliari, Palermo, Rome, Savona. This week-long cruise is aptly named La Dolce Vita. Over 1,000 staff work behind the scenes to provide impeccable service. Nothing but excess here. The Costa Concordia is 114,000 tons of steel, 290 meters long, 50 meters wide, 78 meters high. It boasts 14 decks, a veritable floating tower block. To move this sea monster, 6 diesel engines provide incredible thrust.
Et typiquement, une machine assez facile à manœuvrer, qui permet d'avoir des variations de vitesse assez souples. Un navire qui, en vitesse de croisière, peut atteindre jusqu'à 23 nœuds.
23 knots, more than 40 kilometers per hour. The ship is barely 6 years old, but has already clocked up more than 200 Mediterranean cruises. In total, it has carried more than 500,000 tourists. The route is always the same. The ship always sails at night, docking every morning in a new tourist spot. This, then, is the heavenly setting in which tragedy will strike. January 13th, 2012, 7:20 p.m. The command post reports back to the harbor master's office as the Costa Concordia casts off.
Volevo comunicare i nostri dati. Passeggeri a bordo 3208, 3208, membri dell'equipaggio 1023. Nostro porto di arrivo Savona, domani ore 7:12, 7:12.
The ship sets a course for northern Italy. The route is relatively simple. The ship will head northwest between the Isle of Genio and the mainland before veering left towards the port of Savona in the early hours. As it has been throughout, the weather forecast is good. Another enjoyable evening lies ahead for passengers aboard the sea monster. Laura and Vincent Ponson are on their first cruise and intend to enjoy their vacation to the full.
Ce soir-là, on rentrait d'excursion, une grande douche parce qu'on était fatigué tout simplement, donc une grande douche et puis on repartait habituellement souvent boire un petit apéritif avant d'aller dîner. Sur le bateau, il y a tout un tas de bars, 5, 6 ou 7 bars, je ne sais plus.
But their evening does not pan out as expected. Most passengers are enjoying one of the ship's 5 restaurants. All think they are heading for Savona. Nobody is aware that the ship is not following the scheduled route. Someone has decided to slightly change course. That someone is the captain, master and commander Francesco Schettino. Right from the start of the cruise, he's been hard to miss. Francesco Schettino is a graduate of the prestigious School of Merchant Navy Officers. He sails every day on the Costa Concordia. He has directed this cruise dozens of times and is respected by his peers. This evening, the captain has asked to change course. He's eager to get closer to the Isle of Genio. Some captains are happy to execute this special maneuver. It even has a name, Inkino, meaning bow or salute. Here's the Costa Concordia alongside the Isle of Giglio a few months before.
Il s'agit donc de passer devant, c'est un grand bateau, le plus illuminé possible. Donc on va allumer tout ce qui est possible et puis on va appuyer sur les sirènes là, puissantes du paquebot, sirènes électriques, sirènes à air, etc. Tout pour faire une impression.
Commander Aperi has sailed all the world's seas. He has captained passenger ships for 20 years and knows this maneuver.
Pour les gens de terre, c'est fantastique. C'est cet énorme bateau qui passe devant le petit port à toucher presque. On pourrait presque, en mettant la main, le toucher. Et donc, c'est impressionnant. C'est une manœuvre délicate, mais bien préparée, ça peut se faire.
The ship has to execute a tight turn at an angle of 24 degrees to its right.
Il y a des anciens de Costa qui vivaient sur l'île, donc c'était un petit cadeau qu'ils allaient leur faire. Aux gens de terre, pas aux passagers.
The aim then was to impress the 50 or so souls at the island's fishing port. The Inkino is scheduled for 9:45 p.m., and the captain wants to supervise the maneuver personally.
Donc il est à table, et puis à ce moment-là, le second capitaine l'appelle en disant on est à 5000 du point tournant. Et il a dû répondre, je monte.
It's 9:34 p.m. when the captain arrives on the bridge. The ship is 5 kilometers from the Isle of Giglio.
Le commandant annonce qu'il prend la manœuvre, c'est-à-dire qu'il dégage le chef du quart de la responsabilité des changements de route. C'est lui qui est en charge directement, et c'est noté sur le journal de navigation, c'est lui qui prend en charge la manœuvre.
He takes command from his first mate. With automatic navigation disabled, he begins issuing orders. The ship moves forward at 30 kilometers per hour towards the Isle of Giglio. Oblivious to all this, the passengers focus on enjoying their cruise.
On décide de descendre au spectacle qui commence à 21h30, le spectacle. Donc ça venait de commencer, je suis au pont 3 avec mes parents, on est au milieu de toutes les rangées, tout ça.
On se retrouve à table avec un autre couple de jeunes retraités parisiens. Et tous les soirs, on se raconte notre journée. Et là, idem, on fait la même chose. On trinque, on se raconte qu'est-ce que vous avez fait à Rome, qu'est-ce que vous avez vu. Donc on est là, tranquille, mais en toute insouciance.
A few floors up, on the bridge, Francesco Schettino and his crew are starting the Inkino. The captain issues orders for the particularly delicate maneuver. As onboard recordings reveal, an argument breaks out between Captain Schettino and his helmsman. But the helmsman reacts too late.
Tout ce laps de temps, d'accord, ces erreurs, cette confusion d'erreurs accumulées, ça prend du temps. Et donc pendant ce temps-là, le navire continue à avancer.
Captain Francesco Schettino began his turn much too late. A tighter turn is needed to get back en route. He immediately asks the helmsman to turn the rudder in an attempt to correct the situation. Except when a ship turns, a physical phenomenon occurs. To the rear are the engines and rudder blades that change direction. They heave round the stern of the ship in a sweeping motion. The The ship actually turns around a point to the fore, somewhere near the bridge.
Au même titre que quand je suis une voiture, par exemple, et que je suis sur la glace, quand je tourne, j'ai l'impression que c'est les roues arrière qui chassent et puis que l'avant reste fixe, ce qui est une illusion réelle. Et donc le navire se retrouve dans cette position-là.
The bridge is now on high alert, as the captain realizes the stern isn't going to make it.
À ce moment-là, on met la barre de l'autre côté pour casser justement cette embardée.
Captain Schettino asks the helmsman to steer left into the skid.
Le timonier a mal compris. Il a remis la barre à droite, alors que c'était à gauche qu'il fallait la mettre.
An error, a misunderstanding that will prove fatal while carefree passengers enjoy their meals. The ship is headed dangerously close to the rocks. It is 45 minutes and 11 seconds past 9 o'clock. A rock at the surface of the water rips open the left side of the hull. Water immediately starts to gush in.
Et à ce moment-là, le bateau a 16 nœuds, quelle que soit l'épaisseur de la tôle, le bateau est ouvert comme une boîte de sardines. Ouais.
À ce moment-là, moi, j'entends et je vois en même temps la coque du navire et j'ai l'impression qu'elle racle le sol, le fond marin.
Grosse vibration, des tremblements. Je comprends pas très bien ce qui se passe. Je me prends le verre de mon voisin.
Et là, les bières, tout s'enfile. Tout ce qui est sur la table commence à partir par terre, quoi. Donc, bien sûr, dans le restaurant, panique intégrale.
Astonishment prevails, but the 4,000 people aboard have no idea what drama is about to unfold. Laura and Vincent are in the middle of the restaurant.
Et à ce moment-là, nos voisins, tout de suite, partent, quittent la table. On sait pas, ils nous disent rien, ils s'enfuient. Et immédiatement, ils se lèvent en disant « Waouh, qu'est-ce qui se passe ?» Les gens commencent à hurler, à se lever, à courir dans tous les sens. Et très vite, une coupure de courant. On se retrouve dans le noir.
Puis ça se rallume, et là, quand ça se rallume, on voit les rideaux complètement penchés. Je me suis dit, oula, bon là, quand même, qu'est-ce qui se passe ?
From the inside, there is no way of knowing that the impact of the granite rock has ripped a hole 53 meters long and 7 meters wide in the ship's steel hull. At this stage, to prevent sinking, the crew are banking on a technical aspect of the ship. Like most ships of this size, the Costa Concordia has a system of 8 watertight chambers. So if it hits a rock and water seeps into 1 or 2 chambers, it will stay afloat. The question is, how many chambers have been damaged? It soon becomes clear that the damage is fatal. 4 chambers have been damaged and are taking on water. The crew do the calculations and realize that sooner or later, the ship will sink.
Toutes les alarmes machines remontent à la passerelle avec des écrans qui nous permettent à distance de voir en gros tout ce qui se passe, paramètres de fonctionnement, paramètres de sécurité. Donc de suite, l'envahissement important est détecté. Ça, c'est forcément le cas.
Dès les premières secondes, Schettino s'est rendu compte que son bateau était foutu. Non pas compliqué, mais foutu.
And with good reason. The vessel is shipping thousands of liters into its holds. Here, scattered around 8 compartments, are all the ship's vital organs. The electrical systems feeding the engines and the pumps removing water are at a standstill. Panic stations. Captain Schettino calls the chief engineer aft.
Solo una cosa voglio sapere. Se abbiamo 4, 5 e 6.
Il 4, 5 e 6 non ce l'abbiamo. Nemmeno l'1, 2 e 3.
Sono tutto allagato questi motori.
Tutto allagato, ma già abbiamo il quadro elettrico principale pieno d'acqua, comandante. Ora qua abbiamo tutto perso, quadro elettrico tutto. Il diesel non sta partendo e ora vado a vedere sopra perché non parte.
Martino!
Sì.
Martino, noi dobbiamo abbandonare la centrale qua,
È obbligato ad andare via.
Andate via, andate via. Andate via, capo, andate. Va bene, stiamo andando via allora.
Cyril Delaire is a former officer of the Merchant Navy. He is an expert in the stability of ships and safety issues.
Quelques minutes après l'impact, le navire n'a plus de propulsion et n'a plus de barre. Donc du coup, il est complètement incontrôlable. Il n'y a plus d'alimentation électrique de secours non plus, donc plus de capacité de pompage. Mais de toute façon, la capacité de pompage n'aurait rien changé au problème. Ce qu'il reste à la disposition de l'équipage, c'est tout simplement la possibilité d'évacuer le navire et d'envoyer un appel de détresse. Grosso modo, c'est ça.
The Concordia is drifting with the wind and waves. On board, passengers are totally lost. The stress is all the greater because, unlike captain and crew, the passengers are unaware that they are close to an island. They have been left to their own resources.
On est dans le noir, la nuit est noire, et l'eau, le peu que je vois à l'horizon, l'eau de la mer, c'est noir. Donc, oui, on est en pleine mer, j'imagine. Et comme le bateau s'est arrêté, il est silencieux. Ça, c'est super stressant. Parce que depuis le début, on avait toujours, même la nuit, quand on dormait, ce petit ronron des moteurs. Et là, il est silencieux.
En fait, vous n'entendez plus rien d'autre que des cris, des pleurs, des hurlements, des choses qui tombent. Vous rentrez dans un autre monde, quoi. Vous êtes plongé dans un monde qui est pas concevable, qui n'est pas imaginable. Enfin, un truc de dingue, quoi. Un truc de dingue. Un truc de dingue.
While the captain should be fully aware of the situation, faced with the panic, he sends out a message intended to reassure. The time is now 9:55 p.m.
Signore e signori, attenzione, prego, vi parlo a nome del comandante. La situazione è sotto controllo, abbiamo avuto un problema tecnico ai generatori della nave, c'è stato un blackout, i tecnici stanno lavorando all'inconveniente per ripristinare le punte della Costa Concordia. Daremo informazioni non appena possibile. Grazie.
A message intended to reassure has the opposite effect. Panic increases and passengers begin to alert family and friends. 25 minutes after impact, at 10:10 p.m., the regional Coast Guard responsible for safety contacts the captain.
Buonasera, Costa Concordia. Cortesemente, avete dei problemi a bordo voi?
Sì, affermativo, abbiamo un blackout a bordo e stiamo verificando le condizioni.
Che tipo di problema? Solamente il generatore? Perché i carabinieri di Prato hanno ricevuto una telefonata di un parente di un marittimo che diceva durante il pranzo mi è cascato tutto in testa.
No, negativo, abbiamo un blackout e stiamo verificando le condizioni a bordo.
Schettino is still undecided and refuses help from the Coast Guard to rescue passengers. Yet for over an hour, he has known the gravity of the situation. The Costa Concordia is only 3 kilometers from the Isle of Giglio. The ship is drifting perilously out to sea and could sink to the bottom at any moment. But a natural phenomenon comes to the aid of the travelers.
navire donc, se retrouve ici sur son aire en train de légèrement tourner vers sa droite, d'accord. Et le navire qui a une surface de voilure, c'est une surface de prise au vent qui est gigantesque, plusieurs milliers de mètres carrés, hein, d'accord, se retrouve donc avec ce vent un petit peu propulsé, d'accord. Il ne gagne pas de vitesse, mais il entretient suffisamment d'air, d'inertie, pour qu'à un moment donné, il vienne dans une position neutre, face au vent.
While the speed is zero, facing the wind, as the rudder is jammed to the right, the ship begins to turn. The wind blows on the left side, dragging the Costa Concordia towards the coast, arousing more fears in the passengers.
On se retrouvait face à une falaise, on se rapprochait, et là quand j'ai vu ce cormoran niché dans la falaise, et dans le noir, vous n'avez aucune perception des dimensions et des distances surtout, aucune notion. Et là, je me suis dit, si je vois le cormoran énorme comme ça, là, on est vraiment très proche et on va vraiment s'écraser contre cette falaise, quoi. Donc là, on m'a dit, vite, on descend.
La peur qui s'installe. La peur parce que nous sommes sur le bateau qui penche terriblement. Donc on se retient comme on peut. On n'a pas de point de repère. Il fait nuit. Je n'ai aucun point de repère. On regarde dehors parce qu'on est sur le pont d'évacuation, donc on va voir ce qui se passe. Mais je ne vois rien.
Du coup, le navire se retrouve avec le vent sur bâbord, d'accord, à une vitesse quasiment nulle. Hein, et ce qui fait que le navire finit, poussé par le vent du large, finit par venir s'échouer sur la côte, sur son flanc tribord, laissant apparaître sur bâbord la brèche.
No orders are given for 20 minutes. Passengers are still left to their own devices. In just a few hours, the ship will totally capsize. In due course, the thousands of liters of water in its holds will tip the ship over. The Costa Concordia's center of gravity is shifting, as its own weight pulls it onto its side. From now on, every second counts. At 10:54 p.m., the order to abandon ship is finally given, an hour after impact.
Abandon the ship and burn off the lifeboat.
Donc l'ordre d'évacuation est donné, et là vous vous prenez vraiment au niveau de la charge, j'allais dire de la décharge émotionnelle, vous prenez l'angoisse de 4000 personnes d'un coup, qui comprend que là vraiment, c'est officiel, voilà, c'est officiel, ce qui était officieux avant, là c'est officiel, ça craint.
Shipwreck isn't the only danger. Anarchy reigns as 4,000 passengers head for the lifeboats.
Il bambino qua, piccolino!
On vous dit de chaloupe en chaloupe, non, c'est complet. Donc les chaloupes avaient commencé à prendre des passagers, mais c'est juste, c'est de la folie, quoi.
The passengers still don't realize how close the island is. Giorgio Fonciulli, a Giglio resident, is strolling by the port when he becomes aware of the disaster that is unfolding.
Quella nave, ci chiedevamo come potesse stare ancora lì senza andare a fondo. Era tutto strano, sembrava un miracolo. Se andava 50 metri prima, 50 metri dopo, sarebbe andata a fondo completamente. Sarebbero morte senza speranza.
The seabed off the Isle of Giglio is indeed abrupt. The cliffs plunge steeply into the water to a depth of 110 meters. The Costa Concordia is aground in the island's only shallows, wedged between two rocky spires holding the ship at a steady angle. The ship is listing so heavily that the boarding deck is already submerged. The last usable lifeboat is stormed. It has room for 250, and everyone wants to save their skin.
Je n'ai pas marché pour aller dans la chaloupe, mais j'ai vraiment senti les gens derrière moi. Ils me poussent, et j'ai pas l'impression de toucher le sol. Et que je rentre dans cette chaloupe, hein, comme si, voilà, on m'avait soulevée comme ça. Et je suis tellement écrasée, mais vraiment, je sens mes poumons là qui sont écrasés entre mon mari et puis la personne d'à côté. Et je dis à mon mari à ce moment-là, c'est pas possible. Moi, je vais mourir étouffée. Je vais m'asseoir devant toi, par terre dans la chaloupe. Il me dit, mais ça va pas, ils vont mettre une bâche, tu vas mourir étouffée.
C'est 250 personnes. Et là, je sais pas, on avait l'impression qu'ils avaient coupé les filins. C'est tombé comme ça. Et je me suis dit, mais dans quel état ils sont dans la chaloupe, quoi. Puis vous voyez rien. Hein. Je vous jure que les hurlements comme ça, c'est pour la vie dans votre tête, quoi. Hein.
Et je me dis, waouh, la coque a touché l'eau. Maintenant, on est des Robinson Crusoe. On va ramer jusqu'au prochain rivage.
Je ne sais pas ce qui va se passer. Parce que je ne sais pas où on est.
Unbeknownst to them, they are a few hundred meters from shore. The first 1,000 or so passengers reach port. Delayed by Francesco Schettino's lies, a rescue helicopter finally arrives on the scene. Using an infrared camera, the pilots realize the extent of the tragedy. Consternation reigns aboard the helicopter.
La costa dov'è?
È questa?
Guarda dov'è?
Eccola qui.
Picchia affondata!
Porca troia! Porco cane! Guarda che casino!
È proprio affondata!
Stiamo entrando sulla nave, quindi venga ancora, stiamo entrando ora.
Attualmente ci sono ancora parecchie persone a bordo della nave.
Mamma mia, fa impressione, c'è tutta la gente che...
Sì,
con la nave ribaltata.
The Italian Coast Guard cannot believe it. Expecting to find a ship suffering blackout, what they see is a capsized sea giant. They are witnessing apocalyptic scenes. Passengers, here in white, are huddled on the ship's side. Some venture perilously onto the hull trying to escape. It's impossible to jump. The water is 60 meters below. They try to go down a rope ladder, but the inevitable happens. The first lifeless bodies are found.
Allora Andrea, guarda un po' il FLIR, c'è un qualcosa che galleggia. È una persona? Non riesco a capirlo dal FLIR. Quella mi sa che era una persona.
Dov'è?
Io lo sto illuminando.
Ti danno fastidio per le comunicazioni.
Era una persona, porca troia.
È morta, penso.
Laura is luckier. After 15 minutes aboard the lifeboat, she's on dry land.
La bâche se soulève. Et là, j'ai vraiment la vision d'une chaîne humaine. Il y a plein surtout des hommes, qui sont là et qui nous tendent des bras pour nous faire sortir. Donc je m'agrippe à un bras. Je me rappelle très bien de cette sensation de mon pied qui touche la terre. Et je me dis, waouh, j'ai retrouvé la terre.
Meanwhile, several hundred people are still trapped on the ship. No one is coordinating the rescue attempts. Amazing as it may seem, Captain Schettino has fled in a lifeboat. He takes a call on his phone from the head of the Livorno Harbor Master's office.
Pronto? Senta, io sono di Falco da Livorno, parlo col comandante?
Sì, buonasera, comandante Falco.
Mi dica il suo nome, per favore.
Il comandante Schettino, comandante.
Schettino? Per cortesia, lei adesso prende e va a bordo. Mi assicuri che sta andando a bordo.
Io sto andando qua con la lancia dei soccorsi, sono sotto qua, non sono andato da nessuna parte, sono qua.
Che sta facendo, comandante?
Sto qua per coordinare i soccorsi.
Che sta coordinando lì? Vada a bordo, ti coordini i soccorsi da bordo. Lei si rifiuta?
No, non mi sto rifiutando.
Adesso comando io. Lei vada a bordo. È chiaro? Ci sono già dei cadaveri, Schettino. Avanti.
Quanti cadaveri ci sono?
Non lo so, uno l'ho sentito. Me lo devi dire lei quanti ce ne sono, Cristo. ma ti rende conto che è buio e che qua non vediamo... E che vuole tornare a casa, Schettino? È buio, vuole tornare? Va bene, comandante. Vada, subito.
But Schettino did not return to the ship. On the contrary, he headed for the port and hid in the island's only hotel. He would not be seen again until the next day, leaving local residents to handle the disembarkation.
Allora lì ci siamo guardati, abbiamo detto siamo 50 persone sul porto, adesso ne arrivano 4.000. C'era una sorta di triage fatto in casa e vedevamo chi era infreddolito, avevamo delle coperte lì da mettere subito, chi aveva dei bambini veniva portato nella scuola materna che c'è qua.
Mario Pellegrini is the island's deputy mayor. He gets into a lifeboat and heads back to the Costa Concordia. His objective is to get aboard and help passengers in distress.
Mi portano sotto una scala di corda, una famosa biscaggina, anche loro per far scendere il personale, perché ancora tanta gente doveva scendere, specialmente il personale. Non è stata proprio una passeggiata salire su una corda. Una volta salito a bordo ho cercato un collegamento di un ufficiale. Io non ho mai trovato un ufficiale, questo l'ho cercato.
Mario helped dozens of people off the ship, climbing onto the hull. In a remote corridor, he rescued 9 passengers from certain death.
In questo corridoio che portava da destra a sinistra della nave c'erano ferme delle persone. Abbiamo cercato una corda, ho trovato un cordino molto fino, un po' tutte le mani tagliate, e di lì abbiamo estratto almeno 9-10 persone. Tanto per capirsi, la prima ragazza che abbiamo tirato su era bagnata, i pantaloni erano bagnati. L'ultimo era bagnato completamente. Io ho visto arrivare l'acqua e quello che ha fatto molta paura, perché è arrivata all'acqua perché la nave si è appoggiata e l'acqua è entrata. Poi si vede che l'acqua è andata via perché è andata a riempire questi grandi vani che aveva la nave dentro. E l'acqua si è sentito molto, questo rumore di acqua di venire e andare via, come se fosse una cascata. E lui mi ha detto una cosa che me la sono ricordata dopo 3 giorni. Mi ha detto, ho visto passare, ci sono dei morti, perché ho visto passare l'ombra di un cadavere e di un bambino morti dentro la vetrata del ristorante.
The rescue operation finally ends at 6 a.m. 6 people are dead with dozens missing. In the morning, the police arrest the ship's captain for manslaughter. While he is under police arrest, a new challenge lies ahead. What to do with a huge, crippled liner? Day breaks over the port of Giglio. The survivors are ferried back to the mainland. The locals are distraught. The Tuscan island returns to calm. A surreal sight remains, the huge wreckage at the entrance to the port.
Nobody has really an experience for this kind of wreck removal, due mainly, as you told, mainly to the size of the ship.
All eyes now turn to the Costa Concordia. What will happen? Will it sink or break up? How could the ship, the embodiment of that tragic night, be moved away?
Però nessuno sull'isola voleva che quella nave stesse qua. C'era il desiderio di toglierla il prima possibile, uno perché era fonte di un pericolo ambientale, uno perché era il ricordo di una tragedia.
Noi viviamo sul turismo e se il nostro mare diventa sporco abbiamo finito di vivere, quindi la prima preoccupazione di un amministratore come potevo essere io era quella, cioè la nostra attività, il nostro tessuto sociale ed economico che veniva intaccato, era quella la paura principale.
In the weeks that follow, the Italian authorities encounter a problem. The Costa Concordia is the largest liner to ever be shipwrecked in maritime history. No ship of this size has ever been refloated, and many experts turn down the assignment. They think the risk of sinking the wreckage is too high. The ship is indeed huge, and it is an unprecedented challenge. It weighs 100,000 tons, the equivalent of 12 Eiffel Towers, not to mention the thousands of liters of water trapped inside. But one man is ready to tackle this daunting task. Nick Sloan is an uncommon expert in refloating ships. He is both a marine engineer and an inventor. In 30 years of working all over the world, he has helped tow away some immense wreckages. This is a man who has refloated 100 ships of all sizes. He arrives on the Isle of Giglio from South Africa in March 2013, over a year after the sinking. Despite his experience, what he sees terrifies him.
But when you arrive in Giglio and you come on the ferry and then you just see this massive, it's completely huge. It's like 3 football fields on its side, and you come very close, within 20, 30 meters past the bow on the ferry, and everyone's going, oh my God, what is this? And how did this happen? You know, it's a real tragedy. Then you get a shock and you go on board and you're climbing up in your harness and you get onto the top and you can't even see the end of the ship. It just seems to go on forever.
As a rule, such huge ships cannot be moved. The only solution is to dismantle them on site. But Nick knows that here he must find another way.
So, to protect the environment, you want to remove the ship in one piece and keep all of the pollutants inside. If you think of a hotel that's 3 football fields long, with thousands of bedrooms, mattresses, curtains, carpets, the catering, the restaurants. So we had to keep it inside the ship and remove the ship in one piece.
Nick Sloan knows that this unusual operation will take many years. The outlay involved is huge, 500 million euros, what the ship cost to build, with no guarantees of success.
Many people told, no, it's impossible. They cannot remove the wreck in one piece, the wreck will break.
For this project, 500 technicians, engineers, and divers will work unstintingly day and night.
$130 divers, 55 welders, coded welders. Over 22,000 individual dives were carried out. It's the biggest diving operation in history. 55,000 hours of underwater ROV footage. It became a logistical challenge.
But there's a problem. The Costa Concordia is balanced and could sink at any moment. Any storm might prove disastrous. Something has to be done. To keep the ship intact, Nick Sloan and his team attempt a last chance operation.
So we need to stop the ship moving. Also, to make the divers, when they are down in the bottom, they only have a meter beneath the ship and the rock and the reef. So if she moves, you can crash a diver very quickly. We're going to drill 18 meters into the bedrock. And then from there, we use the cables underneath the belly of the ship, and we have a hydraulic strand jack machine which will tension it up.
This operation to make the ship safe will last 6 months. Months during which a new wave of people arrives on the island.
pensavamo mai che ci potesse essere un turismo della tragedia. Cioè abbiamo visto da una parte l'incremento del turismo giornaliero, di questi curiosi che venivano per vedere la nave e se ripartivano il giorno stesso, e un decremento, cioè una diminuzione del turismo stanziale, quello che veniva sempre sull'isola e che ovviamente era infastidito dalla presenza della nave.
To remove the ship, the objective is to right it, then refloat it. The ship may be secure, but to ensure it doesn't break up while being righted, it needs a solid base. Once again, Nick has to innovate.
We needed something that would fill up the form. So on the seabed you had all the different undulations. You also had the angle of the slope.
To create a flat surface, enormous inflatable bags are placed on the seabed in a painstaking operation.
You lower your bag empty so you can place in a proper way, and then there is a port and you inflate the ground inside and becomes a stiff support. So one on top of the other, and we built all this. This is a very required a very important underwater works.
18,000 tons of concrete are injected into the bags to form an underwater support 25 meters high. But the ship is huge, 50 meters wide. The team of engineers sets up huge underwater platforms on which the ship will stand once upright. All the constructions are in proportion to the ship's dimensions. The site is colossal.
Yeah, now these platforms are huge. So three platforms together is the same length as a football field. It's 25 meters in height. It's 45 meters wide. So that when the ship comes upright, the whole ship can lay on the platform.
This is the crazy scenario imagined by Nick Sloan. The idea is to haul the ship up by cables, then float it on huge watertight tanks acting as buoys. While the ship is still on its side, the team has to plan for the next stage, floating the sea monster.
To give again to the ship the two main characteristics of a ship, buoyancy and stability. The wreck lost totally these two characteristics.
So we're going to put tanks on the outside, almost like when you have a baby in a swimming pool. You put the armbands around the baby's arms to make it float.
The tanks are so huge they are built in a shipyard, ironically, the same one that built the Costa Concordia.
You can consider a building with a flat of about 110 square meter surface and from 7 to 11 floors, small skyscraper. And we had 30 of this pontoon. Everything was very, very, very big because we had to give to the wreck its own buoyancy. So we had to build nearly another Concordia around the Concordia itself.
The tanks, welded to the side of the ship, are connected to the platform with gigantic cables. By pulling on the cables, the ship can be righted. No such operation has ever been attempted in the history of refloating. No liner this size has ever been refloated. How will the wreckage react? After 18 months of work, the big day has arrived. The eyes of the world are on the tiny island of Giglio.
For the whole duration, we had no idea how long it would take, because no one knew the weight of the ship.
Such are the forces needed to right the ship, it could split at any moment. Anxiety is running high in the control room. It's now or never.
First we apply 2,000 tons pulling force, and then we wait 15 minutes, and then we apply 500 tons each step, every time waiting 15 minutes in order to allow the stress spreading on the structure of the wreck, and not to remain, to concentrate too much the load.
Still increasing and nothing's happening. And then we were really nervous because now you're using more force than you had to. You're crashing the ship. We were expecting something to fail, something to collapse. Maybe the ship would twist. Maybe she would be 10 meters down by the bow.
But the ship finally begins to move. A load of 6,000 tons on the cables manages to right the ship. The submerged section gradually comes to the surface.
And then we finally discovered the dark side of the moon, the other side with all the real damages.
There were no more pulling machines pulling her down. The buoyancy tanks were now holding her up, and we could then adjust the buoyancy and slowly bring her down gently onto the platforms. As it came down, 3:30, 3:45 in the morning, it was perfectly in the middle. Let's switch everything off and go and have a beer.
The ship is now vertical again. The exposed section reveals the violence of the wreckage. But moving the ship is impossible as 40,000 tons of water weigh down the Costa Concordia on the platform.
After the power bucket, a lot of people were very surprised that, when we brought her all the way upright, she was still 10 stories, 32 meters underwater.
70% of the ship is still beneath the water. To float the vessel, other cases are attached to the other side to surround the ship. The aim is to ensure that the ship does not break in two.
Yeah, so basically we only have enough buoyancy to pick up the ship about to 18, 20 meters of water depth. And that's with 66,000 cubic meters. So we didn't have enough space on port side, and to keep it equal, we had to put exactly the same, so it had to be a mirror image on the starboard side, so that when you didn't do the refloat, because you're so badly damaged, if you had anything that was out of balance, and that could cause it to collapse.
The ship has to be righted and the stress evenly spread. If this maneuver is not precise, the ship could become twisted or even break up. After 2.5 years, with 500 people working every day, engineers hope to finally refloat the Costa Concordia. July 19th, 2014. The big day is here. The resurrection of the sea monster has attracted all the inhabitants of the Isle of Giglio. Some survivors of the shipwreck are also at the port to witness the miracle. The watertight tanks filled with water must now be emptied and pumped full of air to create an immense buoy around the ship. On paper, the principle is simple enough.
Adding a bit of air here, adding a bit of air there, seeing what would happen, try and get her a little bit lighter.
The steel monster gradually rises to the surface, but the operation is a delicate one.
Step by step, when each deck came outside of the water, we stopped the operation and waited for the exit of this trapped water outside the wreck.
It takes a week to lift 17 meters of the ship out of the water. Then what the local residents have been waiting for finally happens. The ship is escorted to Genoa for dismantling. The refloating operation will end up costing Costa's insurance company €1 billion, twice the original cost of the Costa Concordia. For Nick Sloan, seeing the ship move away is a relief. Mission accomplished, an act of defiance to those who said it could not be done.
Yeah, you live it 24 hours a day. You You hear, you listen to it, you feel it. So to see it finished and successfully finished, yeah, it's fantastic. The success has to be tempered with the people that you got to know, the families looking for the last two bodies. Those families will be changed forever. There was a lot of passengers that went through a lot of trauma who survived. So I think the whole thing, the whole Concordia incident certainly was a tragedy.
Ma ho avuto il momento di pensare. Sarebbe stato veramente più gioioso, anche più bello, anche se si fossero salvati tutti. Purtroppo non siamo riusciti, non è stato possibile salvare nessuno. Più volte mi sono chiesto se avrei potuto fare qualcosa di più.
For many, a floating coffin is being hauled away, the memory of a macabre night. During operations of refloating and dismantling, 2 bodies are found. The shipwreck has caused 32 deaths. On top of the compensation paid to victims, in 2013, the Costa Concordia's owners are compelled to pay a €1,500,000 fine after a negotiated procedure. In 2016, several officers, including the helmsman, were sentenced to several months in prison after appeal. Captain Francesco Schettino, meanwhile, is sent to jail for 16 years, a sentence upheld on appeal. His appeal is rejected on May 12, 2017. His sentence stands. It is the epilogue to a cruise that went out of control.